Hey guys, welcome back to the Art and Business of Writing podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jones, and I'm with Kayla Thomas. Hey Kayla, how's it going today?
It's going great. I'm keeping busy and trying to stay warm.
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks out from Christmas. Have you done all your shopping?
Yes. It's always a mission for me to have it done by about the 1st of December, actually. I'm one of those nerdy people that are done shortly after Thanksgiving.
See, I thought you were going to say I'm one of those nerdy people who has it done right after Labor Day.
Oh, no. I'm not that bad. But I definitely enjoy the season more when I can be done in early December. I can just relax and enjoy the reason for the season for me.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys who will take it all the way to the last minute. I like the drama of shopping on the 24th.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. It's a man thing, I think, because my husband does that too, and it makes me freaking crazy.
But it is what it is. But speaking of the holidays, one of the coolest things about the holidays is books. And I love reading during the holidays. And I know that you've been actively promoting one of your late crime books, as part of your holiday promotions. And you've been writing in that world. And we have someone today who created that. So can you tell us a little bit about what late crime is and how you got involved? And then we'll segue.
Yeah. So the Late Crime Kindle world was created by Toby Neal, and it wasn't her intention to create the world. She wrote a large series that Amazon took notice of. It sold very well. They are police procedurals, and there's a little dose of romance in there as well. She has a main character, Lay, that she leads through all of these books. And so in Amazon, and Toby will explain it more, what it means to have a world. But Toby went through a period of recruiting people to write in her world. And we'd kind of gotten to know each other a little bit online. And it took her asking me twice to finally decide that, yeah, I do want to write there and stretch my writing muscles a little bit. I've always just written pretty much just straight contemporary romance, but writing in the late crime world made it so I had to turn those stories into romantic suspense and learn how to kill people and solve crimes. And it has been so much fun. And we have such a great group of writers that I've become friends with. As we know from our last podcast, we had Julie C. Gilbert, who is also one of the late crime authors. And so it's been a fabulous experience. And I'm so stoked to have Toby on today to talk about all of that.
I think that's so cool that you guys write together and create these stories. It's really neat. Of course, I've seen it with like Star Wars where, George Lucas had the canon and other writers wrote in Star Wars. But to see it in the indie world is so cool to me.
Yeah, it's awesome. People should Google the Amazon Kindle worlds just in general, because Toby's is not the only one. There are quite a few of them in differing genres. So it's definitely worth taking a look at them.
So Kayla, why don't you introduce Toby for our audience?
Sure. Toby Neal is a writer who made the leap from the corporate world to full-time writing in an inspiring way. Toby made a name for herself with her 12-book late crime series, which is now turned into an Amazon Kindle world. She's gone on to co-write a 6-book action romance series with Emily Kimmelman, as well as her own series of romance novels and a late crime spin-off series called Paradise Crime. Toby joins us to talk about those things, as well as share tips on how to write a long-running series, how to co-write with another author, and what it's like to have your own Amazon Kindle world.
Ooh, exciting. Well, here's the interview, guys. Hope you enjoy it.
Toby, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you today.
Thanks so much for reaching out and inviting me. I'm excited to share with you guys too.
Yeah,
Great.
Good to have you.
So, Toby, can you take a quick moment and expand on your bio for our audience?
Sure. I think the most interesting thing about me and my writing is that it's a lot about Hawaii, and a lot of people love our 50th state. I grew up there, and I'm actually a third-generation non-Hawaiian person, which is an interesting position to be in. I write a lot about my state because it's a very small and interesting. Everybody loves paradise, but it's also filled with probably the most cultures we have in one place, other than maybe New York City, which I got to visit this summer and see that it's very multicultural too. Some of our cities are, but Hawaii is very unique in that we have so many different Pacific Islanders and Asian and all kinds of folk living over there and for many generations. So it's a really, not just because it's beautiful, but it's a super interesting place to write about and as an insider to that state. So a lot of my writing focuses on that. Oh, and also, before I became a writer, I had a whole other career, which was in mental health. I'm a clinical social worker and a therapist, and so that was my primary career until probably about 8 years ago.
Okay. Great. And I'll just let everybody know I've read quite a few of your books, and you and I already kind of know each other a little bit. And I'll attest that your books do a great job of bringing in that multicultural element. And that's one of the things that makes them so great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So you're probably best known right now for your 12-book Lay Crime series. Can you tell our listeners kind of the Cliff Notes version of how that journey began for you and if you envisioned it going that far from the start?
Well, I was one of those people who always wanted to be a writer. And many of us were like that. We dreamed of someday being a writer. And I was that person. I originally went to college for journalism, but woke up to practicality and needing to, certain adults in my life and strangely random ones kind of gave me like, that's a tough life. And so I ended up going into mental health, as I said, and that was my main career. And I was working in a high school. Actually, I was working in a junior high when a very serious tragedy happened, and two young freshman girls at our high school right next door were drowned in a very bizarre accident, quote. We were actually told it was a homicide. I was part of the grief response team that went up to the high school to kind of break the news to the other students and process grief with the kids. We were accompanied by police. The police debriefed us before and said that it was an active homicide investigation because the girls were partially unclothed and there was a lot of suspicious circumstances. And we were, of course, we're supposedly the adults handling the situation, including the principal. Everybody was just beside themselves. And it was a super impactful event. I went and dealing with the kids' grief, watching the police operate, my own mind filled with questions. And really all my job was to hold hands and pass around the tissues. And I was just, that was unsatisfying to me. I couldn't, I went straight home from that. And I had at the time an online anonymous blog. So over the years, I kept writing. I journaled. I went to things. I wrote short stories. I entered small contests. I started novels and never finished them. It was this festering need within me that wasn't going anywhere. I went home and on my anonymous blog, I started this story about one of the police officers who was in the room. I just imagined who she was and how she got sucked into this thing with these two drowned girls. And I posted it. And I had never posted anything like that before. And I had developed a little following. And immediately my readers were like, and what happens next? And so then I was like, yeah, I'm going to find out what happens. I am going to get to the bottom of this. And so I dove through the eyes of this damaged character. Many of my clients have been through, different forms of abuse. And my police officer, who is the main protagonist, is a childhood sexual abuse survivor. And so kind of from a therapist point of view, I knew a lot about that and working with that. And so I intersected that with the crime and with the whole things with, the dad who is a drug dealer and all these things that really happen in our dark side of paradise, if you will. So my gal is a local girl. We call them local girls in the sense that she is a multiracial Hawaiian, Portuguese, and Japanese. And she has a very tangled and messy family. And I just went into this thing and I was solving the crime, and it really did something for me as the frustrated therapist in the situation. And in the end, they concluded that the girl's death was accidental, the real life event that sparked the book. There are still people who don't agree. There are still people who think that it's a cover up and other things happen, this and that. I went ahead and set it on a different island than I was on to try to not, be sensationalizing something that had happened on my island, but to, of course, fictionalize it further. And so it truly is fiction, everything in that book, but it was sparked by real life events and by my frustration as a writer who wasn't actually writing. And that is it's a terrible torture to be a writer who's not writing.
Wow, what a story. Yeah. No, isn't that funny how adults kind of come and muck the waters up for us when we dream of being certain things?
Yep.
So take us from the time you wrote the book. How long did it take you to bridge that into a full-time writing career?
So that was interesting. And I am an indie primarily. I do have some, traditional deals with audiobooks, foreign rights, and, some different platforms, but not, none of my writing books they're all self-published. And this came about, I believe, because of the time that I finally started writing. The first book took me 3 years to complete because, again, if I could be so bold, I was working through my personal crap, because I lacked confidence, and I had put my dream on the back burner for so long that getting through my own resistance was quite a process. And then I finally got that book done, and then I began the editing process. And so it was a total of 4 years from the beginning of that event that sparked it and where I began on my blog to when I was finding an agent. Okay. And it had been already through a pass of professional editing at $1,500 a pass. And then I ended up getting an agent with the book. And meanwhile, I was writing the second book and the third book. And the agent said I needed an edit. So I did another professional edit. And so I spent money on that first book with professional editing. I think I spent $3,000 on that alone. Once I had begun, though, I was like unstoppable. I think it was because I was 40, and I realized my kids, who I had sacrificed for, a lot to make sure they were the centerpiece of my life, were in high school and no longer needing me. And my life was passing by, and my dreams were dying on the vine. And as soon as I kind of clicked into that, I was on fire. And people have said to me, "Holy smokes, Toby, you started writing in 2000, and I think it was 2004 or 5. And I've written close to 30 books now. And I feel like I am making up for the lost time that I didn't follow my dream earlier." So actually, from when that first book, I ended up having to self-publish it because my agent, who was a very big, really awesome agent, she tried for about 6 months to sell my 3-book series. At that point, I was still writing. I just kept going, with the Lay stories. And she got super frustrated with the market. She said, "I can't sell anything to save my life except a freaking celebrity cookbook. I'm retiring. The golden age of publishing is past." And she retired. And this left me holy smokes, it took me, close to 2 years to get her. And now she's retired. Am I going to start over again? No. By that point, I knew my work was good enough to make it in the commercial marketplace. And I had that confidence and that feedback. And so I went ahead and self-published in December of 2010. And that's right edging into 2011 when my next books came out. And that was also really a key time for some of us who have made it big. So if you study trends, I don't know, have you guys heard of Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes.
Yeah, he's written a really interesting book called The Tipping Point. And, as a psychology background person, I'm really interested in the kinds of things that people say it's luck, but actually it's just the moment of time when you entered the world with a certain idea. And Gladwell writes a lot about that, about how exceptional things are not always that exceptional. They're when they happened and the zeitgeist at the time. And so that's why I feel like I came into self-publishing with a lot of books and a top quality product at a certain time when a lot of people began, who went serious with their career in writing, also did. And those folks are still doing well. And so kind of like Bill Gates, when he came up with his computer thing, it was Gladwell talks about Gates as not that he was an extraordinary person with a vision and all of that, but it was also the time was ripe. And so the time is ripe for self-publishing for those who are not afraid to work like dogs.
Right.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. So how do you go about mapping out a long-running book series like this? Do you have a specific way that you go about planning each story and keeping yourself organized?
I am on my second major series now, the Paradise Crime series, which is a spin-off series from Late Crime, the first 12 books. But Late Crime was very organic, and it arose, again, out of an inexperienced writer with passion and issues that she wanted to explore. And it evolved in a very organic way. And what was so interesting is that if you read the series, though, it's like, oh my gosh, stuff that happens in book 10 that harks back to the very first book. And so in a weird way, even though it's completely organic and not planned, the threads of that invention, I believe, were still in my subconscious, and they unveiled themselves as time went on. But I will say now that even though that's a best-selling series, it's made the USA Today best-selling list 4 different times, I made some mistakes in it, in keeping it going. I chatted with Kayla yesterday and told her I was gonna give a reveal in today's talk. And one of the mistakes I made was a timeline mistake. So I basically have my characters aging, and real time is passing in each book. That is 6 months to a year to a year to a year. And holy smokes, my protagonist started out as like 25 in the book, and I knew I wanted to achieve certain things within her life, and that way it was planned. Like, I wanted to explore a certain arc with this character, which was, how does a woman who has experienced tremendous, child sexual abuse get healed? That was the question I wanted to answer in the series. And I wanted to show that she gets healed through therapy, which I have an active therapist role in the books, through an incredible love relationship with an exceptional man, and that's in the books, and through her job. So she acts out and searches out all the answers that will bring her healing through her work. So those 3 arcs are built into the series. Now, where I went wrong, though, is that time was also built into the series. And at a certain point, they were aging, and the clock was ticking, literally, like, oh my gosh, is she going to have a kid? We got to get started, like, holy cow. And so I trapped myself. I painted myself into a corner by wanting to achieve those certain things. And then basically, oh my gosh, the only way I can continue the series is to kill some of these beloved characters and set her off on another trajectory. Like in that way, I kind of like, so other people my fans who love the series have been like, no, you just go back in time and you spend a bunch of time in this year and you just keep writing about that. But unfortunately for me, that's not satisfying. I am all about subplot. I am all about the character development. And so these long-running mystery series like Janet Ivanovich and some of these ones are tremendously commercially successful, the Kinsey Milhone ones, the characters are static. They show up book after book, solving a crime. Nothing is happening inside of them. And I just, like, that's the antithesis of who I am as a writer. I can't do that. So now I learned my lesson. I have moved on to the Paradise Crime series, and in it, I've basically created a side character from Late Crime that I fell in love with, but I am not trapping myself with timeline. So every single book is happening right now.
Hey, that works.
And it's a series I can keep writing until the cows come home, because basically it's girl with a dragon tattoo. So you've got this hacker, outside of society. She's a multicultural woman. She's Black and Thai. She's aristocrat from an aristocratic background. She's also experienced abuse because she was a domestic violence survivor. So my tagline, we're also being pitched for TV and film, is Girl with a Dragon Tattoo becomes female Jack Reacher in Hawaii. So basically, I move her from the FBI, we're exploring her background, we're solving her stuff, and she's developing as a person on a longer, slower character development arc in a very open-ended direction. So I'm headed towards female Jack Reacher. She's basically outside of society and norms and solving crime on her own with her amazing computer program that she invented. So I've gone in a direction that I could write like 20, 40, 60 books of this and never run out of the timeline problem. So if you're thinking about doing a long-term series, watch for the timeline.
Good to know.
Oh, yeah.
Really box you in.
You can always get TARDIS time travel.
That's great. So, Toby, you've been really prolific, especially this last year. Do you know every year how many books you're going to aim to publish? Do you have an editorial calendar that you set up every year?
I've tried that, and many really successful, productive indie writers do that. They have a production calendar. I try that, and then I just always depart from it. And this last year, I did, holy smokes, 10 books. But the 6 of them were with my writing partner, Emily Kimmelman. So she is definitely someone you should invite to the show. Fantastic young woman, action adventure writer. And I got to know her because she wrote for my Kindle world. So this is, speaking of the timeline, so another thing, who knew that the Late Crime series was going to get so popular, it was going to have its own Kindle world, and all my books would become canon. And now I really have to worry about the timeline because other people are writing in my world and they're having to fit their books in with my timeline. And so what I did with that series, just to answer that as a sidebar thing, was I built in a 5-year gap so that all the Kindle World books, which are fan fiction, they're licensed fan fiction with Amazon, can take place within this 5-year window where pretty much nothing happens. With the main characters, at least their situation is static. So I'm like, I'll make a place for them to play. But that also carved 5 years off of my possible writing timeline. So anyway, moving on. How did I do 10 books? I did 6 of them with my partner, Emily Kimmelman. And this was a planned event. So I had decided I wanted to try co-authoring. I was really hitting the dry spell and I needed some extra, mojo. And I thought of someone who had a ton of mojo, and that was Emily. We met in person while she wrote her Kindle World novella, which is called Warrior Dog. It's actually, my protagonist has a dog, and she decided to write a Kindle World novella from the dog's perspective. It was so unique and so wonderful.
Wow.
It was the story of Fire Beach, which is book number 8, I think, from the dog's perspective as the dog experienced it. And I just loved Emily's energy, her fire, her originality. And I approached her and said, hey, what do you think about, I really kind of want to get into romance and try some of that. And I want to do something sort of dystopian and apocalyptic because I'm really worried about the world right now. And what do you think about co-authoring? And Emily immediately said yes. She was just coming back from maternity leave with her first child and had taken a break from writing and was also in a sort of angsty, like, I don't know how to get started again mode. And we planned a 6-book series. We planned the entire thing. We actually did a timeline of a pandemic, the beginning of the outbreak of the pandemic, the midpoint, the aftermath. And then we created this family and this whole, the haven, the place where the fortified compound where they're all trying to get to from all different parts of the United States as the pandemic breaks out. And each couple, so if you're interested in love in the time of pandemic, look for the Scorch series because they are intense, bullets flying, and passion raging kind of thing, because there is, when people are in an intense situation, an urge to live and to live fully, and we explore that in these books. So 6 of the books were with her, and then I've done, again, 4 of my new series, the Paradise Crime.
Wow, that's an amazing writing life you've got there.
I just got really tired.
That's awesome though. It's so
I'm kind of tired too.
Yeah, like in like a 1 or 2 minute just span, real quick. Can you just tell us, like, what do you enjoy about co-authoring? Was it something that you were really open to, or is it something that you had to think about, or did you say, hey, let's dive in with both feet and let's see how it goes and we'll figure it out? Okay,
so I could say really a lot on this topic, so I'll just stay with the thing that I love about co-authoring with someone who they really need to be at your speed, in terms of able to perform and competency. And so if you're looking for a partner, look for someone who can keep up with you or push you in your craft. And what we did was we had a time difference. And we were writing, I wrote the male characters, she wrote the female, and we were alternating points of view throughout a planned, outline. And I would post my words, and then she would post hers. The next day, I would wake up and read hers and riff off of that, but following the outline. It was so dynamic, you guys. It was so addicting because she was pushing me and surprising me and igniting me all the time. And she says the same thing. She says, and I'm sort of quoting, it was like having a fairy godmother keep writing my book for me every morning. This experience of excitement, like, what is she going to do today? And that's what it can be when you have a really talented partner. And I feel like I really picked well. Emily has grown a lot through our partnership. She had not done third person, and our series is third person, and she had written in first person. So that was a big jump for her in a different direction, but she was down with it and really picked up quickly. And I miss it. I miss the energy of it now that we're both back in our own projects. She's actually coming all the way out to California, and we're meeting tomorrow on Monday to strategize new books. We can do everything online, but we love it when we're together in person. We're kind of like, whoa, you never saw so much hyperactivity in your life.
Yeah, I know. I get that way about collaborating with people on various things too. Like the energy is amazing, and it really takes you both to the next level. Real quick question, Toby, about co-authoring. How do you divide the workload? How does it work? Do you guys share a document with, do you use what writing suite do you use when you work together?
This last time we used Google Docs. Do not ever do that. Do not do that. It corrupted everything. So when we downloaded from Google Docs, it corrupted. Our words was embedded with that Unicode. So in the future, but we had done, because like I said, we planned it all in advance. We did it all at once. Then we started writing. Then we started downloading the books and realizing, that they were corrupted. It was too far down the road to stop. So in the future, I think we're looking at Microsoft or, Office Suite or something like that we can all just sort of log into and use. So, but whatever you do, don't use Google Docs because it will corrupt your different programs when you go to download the stuff. So yeah. That's how we did it.
But you're a crime writer. Don't you like corruption? No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, Chris.
Oh, fun.
Now, Toby, really quickly, really fast. I know it's a broad topic, but how did you get invited to Kindle Worlds?
So that was an interesting one. Kindle Worlds called me. One of the editor who was running it, the head of it, was basically, he was recruiting successful indie writers to go and write for Kindle Worlds because they were beating the bushes to get that program started. I don't know if I even told Kayla this story, but he called me and I was like, this is Sean from Amazon. And I'm like, oh my God, my train has come in. I was so excited. And he's like, I'm calling to tell you about Kindle Worlds and to see if you'd be interested in writing for that. And I'm like, is it okay? this is how, I guess you could call it hubris or whatever, but it didn't penetrate that he was asking me to write for someone else's world. I said, I'm really flattered that you're asking me to have a Kindle world. This is the best day of my life. And he's sitting there, and there was a big, long pause. He said, I need to take a look at who you are. Let me get back to you. And he hangs up. And I was like, what was that? And I went over to my husband. I was like, I can't believe it. I just heard from Kindle Worlds. They said they were interested in having, and then all of a sudden, like, I processed what he said. He was asking me to write for somebody else's Kindle World.
Oh,
and
no.
I just put him on mine. And I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. So then I went into the whole writer self-doubt thing of hair pulling and pacing around. And
right.
And then he followed up and emailed me and said, we don't have anything like what you're doing in there. And I would like to propose that you have your own Kindle World. I called you to write for somebody else, but now I'm looking at your numbers. I'm looking at your fan base. It's small but dedicated. We don't have enough. Oh, how did it? He very delicately said that it was too white over there in Kindle World. we needed to involve some other cultures and have a broader reach like that. And so he was very impressed with Late Crime. He had blazed through the first couple books, and would I be interested? And I was like, hell yes. And so that is how that happened. Basically, I pitched myself accidentally.
Dude, that is awesome. And we're gonna have to have you back. We're gonna have to have you back on a future episode to really break down what Kindle World is, how people can get into it, how people write for it.
Yep.
So we're gonna bring you back for that. But we're gonna come in for a landing right now because you've shared so many really cool things from how to outline and create book series to how to collaborate. You shared a lot of really great things. So if you could just give our authors really some encouragement before we take off.
Yeah, if you have a dream to write, this is the right time to be alive. There are no gatekeepers, and I actually have fans from my anonymous blog who saw my very germy little beginnings as an insecure 40-year-old working school counselor mom, see me now completely in making six figures as an indie with an entire world of other writers and all these things happening for me in my dream. If you have a dream and you're willing to work hard, there is way more information out there than you can shake a stick at on how to do it. And I never had that information. I was one of those sort of pioneers figuring it out by accident. But now I would never go back. Like, my agent almost sold my first 3 books for $10,000, and I regularly make more than that every month. And so it's just, like when I think about that, oh my gosh, I almost got trapped in that time machine of the former days. I'm so grateful that I have been able to have the path that I have, and that I'm a part of shaping the publishing landscape for other writers. And that's why I put so much into my Kindle World. I'm super involved with it. I'm actually doing a retreat that's my Kindle World authors are the primary invitees, not charging for it, just sharing. And yeah, that's part of what I'm about. That counseling background always comes in a way of wanting to give back. And so if you're a writer, don't sit on it. Don't wait till you're 40. Do it now. There's not a reason in the world why you shouldn't.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Toby. And let our writers know how they, our audience and of writers, let them know how they can connect with you and find you and your books.
Yeah, you can just search me, Toby Neal, on Amazon or any of the others and see my author bio. You can also look for me on tobyneal.net. And I also blog a lot about writing, and you can see through there the things I've shared about my journey, if any of it is helpful to you.
Hey, thanks for joining Kayla and I today, Toby. It was great to have you on. Great to learn about your writing life.
Yeah, great to meet you too, Chris. And thank you, Kayla, for being in my Kindle World.
Oh, yes, I love it. Thank you for inviting me in there.
All right. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Hey author, Chris here. I want to tell you about a program that I'm really excited about called Group Gold. For a long time, I would post on my Facebook fan page only to find crickets. Very few interactions, very few connections. That is before I discovered Facebook groups through the program Group Gold. Facebook Group Gold program is the most complete one of its kind to help you grow, engage, and monetize your Facebook group. Mark Mawhinney, the program creator, will walk you through every aspect of how to create, manage, and run your Facebook group so that your tribe is coming to you. It makes it easier, doesn't it? When you've got people interacting with you because they want to be there. That's the beauty of Facebook groups over Facebook fan pages. Ever since I started the Facebook Group Gold program, I've been growing my group, building my audience, and I've got people in there who are active and who want to be there, hanging out with me every single day. You can have that too. Just visit my website, www.readywritelaunch.com, and under the offer tab, select Group Gold. Then you can see for yourself the magic of Facebook groups.